Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, federal employees. Welcome back to this Q&A episode where I answer your questions that you have about your federal retirement, federal benefits, about investing, taxes, and anything else in between when it comes to you retiring comfortable and confident. If you're new here, my name is Dallin Hawes, a financial planner serving you guys as federal employees, helping you guys retire comfortable and confident. Again, we have 3 incredible questions today. If you have any specific questions about your federal retirement, there's a link below to actually submit that through my website, and then we pick the best ones that we like to share with the community and to help everyone get better and learn and go from there. So we're gonna dive right in and start with question number 1. So question number 1, they say, hey, I just retired and I want to make sure that my annuity / pension, right, same thing, those 2 words are kind of used interchangeably, annuity or pension, is correct because my calculations don't match the results from OPM. I calculated my pension to be $3,450 per month before tax or deductions. However, they calculated it to come out to about $3,100. So that's, about $350 less per month. I don't know if there's some secret thing that I do not know or if I should challenge this amount. And on top of that, it took them a whole year to come up with this amount. Okay, so this is a great question. Great question. Because honestly, when you guys retire and actually start getting pensions, this may happen to you. Or when you get pension estimates from your HR, which most of you should be doing if you're getting close within 5 years of retirement, you definitely want to be getting an estimate from your HR. Say, hey, what is an estimate for my pension? And they could start running numbers for you. Now, it's not always going to match what you come up with, and you want to make sure you figure out why before you retire. It's way easier to fix things before you retire than after. Now, without knowing more about your situation, the specific situation of the person that has submitted that question, I have no clue who's right. I have no clue if they're right. I have no clue if OPM is right. But I'm going to share 5 questions that you need to really think through to figure it out. Okay, so we're going to start here. So question number 1 is, how many years of service are they assuming? Right? And whenever you get an estimate from your HR, they're going to, it's generally a line item that says, hey, this is how many years and months of service we are assuming. Now, you have to remember when calculating your pension, they only do full years and full months, and they drop off whatever days are remaining. So for example, let's say you have 20 years of service, 6 months, and 10 days. Well, that extra 10 days is going to drop off, and you're only going to get credit for the 20 years and 6 months. So you have to remember that. So the first thing is, how many years of service do they show you have? And is that accurate? Does that match what you show? Right? Does that match your records? Do they have all the records they need? That's number 1. You have to understand that. Next, what are they using for your high 3? Now, if you're unfamiliar with what your high 3 is a big element of your pension to calculate that. So what your high 3 is your average salary in the last 3 years, or not the last 3 years, but the 36 consecutive months that you get paid the most. For most of you, you get paid the most at the end of your career. So generally, it's the last 36 months of your career. Now, what you want to make sure, you want to double check that the high 3 they're using is the same that matches what you show, right? If you do some rough math and say, hey, in the last 36 consecutive months, my average salary was $100,000 a year. Well, is that what they're showing for your high 3? If it's not, figure out what they're showing and figure out how they did that math, right? You want to make sure that everything is matching up. So that's the second one. Number 3, if you retire with what they call an MRA+10 retirement, then if you retire before, of course, 62, your pension is going to be reduced. Right? So maybe that may be the issue for this person is, hey, they retired with an MRA+10 retirement and they didn't realize that they could get a pension reduction depending on their age and their years of service, right? So check that out. If you don't know what an MRA+10 retirement is, there'll be a link below in the description to check out and get more information there. Next, do you have any part-time service? If you have any part-time service, then that certainly can decrease what your pension would be. So maybe if you didn't know about that, maybe they calculated that into your pension and maybe you didn't in yours. I'm not sure. Definitely check that out for you. Next, so because your number and their number was about $350 different from each other. One thing that they could be pushed in there already was survivor benefits, because it was just about 10% less their number than your number. So for those that don't know, survivor benefits are basically a deduction that comes out of your pension that provides your spouse a piece of your pension if you were to pass away. And that comes straight out of your pension. So you have to understand, okay, that comes out before you even see the money. And other things come out as well, like taxes, if you're paying for health insurance or life insurance or dental and vision, all those things come out before you get an actual net number. So you want to make sure you're calculating all that stuff in. Even if your agency doesn't on their estimate, you want to make sure it's all in there that you're going to need in retirement, okay? So that is question number one. I know that's a big one, but these core things are crucial to make sure you get the pension that you deserve and that you have worked so hard to earn over your career. So let's jump right on to question number two. So question number two, they say, currently my investment portfolio is 60% stocks and, 90% stocks and 10% bonds. However, I am concerned about inflation and the market. What are your thoughts about going into the G fund for all of my TSP investments? My TSP comprises about 30% of all my investments, so this would mean that I would be 70% in stocks and 30% G fund overall. Okay, so what they're saying here, let's just make a little thing. They're saying, hey, 70% of my investments are outside of the TSP, whether it's in, old 401k, an IRA, brokerage account, whatever, and then 30% of their investments is in the TSP. Okay, so I'm glad we just had to clarify that. Okay. Next, they say, I know that the G fund is currently only growing at about 1%, but I also know that it will not lose money over time, whereas investing in bonds means you could lose some of your principal. This way, I would feel more settled because I know that a large chunk of my money would be safe from the stock market. I'm currently only 59 and will not need to tap into my TSP for the next 10 years. Okay, so this is a great question, and I get forms of this question all the time, is basically, how should you be investing? That makes sense for you. And I totally understand what you're feeling. Right? Because you've worked so hard over your career, you've saved this nest egg, and you want to make sure it's safe when you need it in retirement, right? Now, here's the thing. So there's a few things you want to keep in mind. Whenever we're talking about investments and risk, there's a couple different types of risk, right? So basically what this federal employee is asking is, hey, should I take about 30% of my money and stick it into the G fund, right? And that may make sense for them. I'm not sure. There's other factors that come into play. But here is something very, very crucial to understand, is that especially in 2021, inflation was a big deal. And if I had to guess, for the next few years, it's going to be a big deal. And so, let's say that the G fund earned 1%. Well, inflation was 6%. So if your money was in the G fund, beyond inflation, you lost money. You lost money because your money didn't grow and the prices went up. Right? So the dollar amount stayed the same, but you lost buying power over time. So over time, the G fund is going to grow just a little bit. Over time, it's going to grow just a little bit. But we know that inflation prices are going to grow probably a little faster than that over time, right? Now, if you invest in the stock market, is it going to be more volatile? Yes, 100%. So over time, it's going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. But over a long period of time, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30 years, over time, the market is going to do better. It is simply going to do better. And that's what's going to allow you to maintain your standard of living over time, is because you're getting growth beyond what inflation is doing, beyond that. So again, for this specific federal employee, I'm not sure how they should be investing. I'm not sure if 30% is okay in the G fund, right? And I know they were talking about the G fund versus bonds. And honestly, the G fund is a fine replacement for bonds in the current market environment. That's probably a fine thing to do, right? But you just want to make sure. And like they said, they weren't planning to need their TSP for 10 years, right? So for 10 years, they're going to only get growth in the G fund. And that could be a big, big hit over 10 years. That's a long time. right? So you just want to be careful. All I'm saying is think it through, and there's risk for being too conservative as well as being too aggressive. You want to find a balance that makes sense for you, that makes sense for when you're going to be needing the money. So that's crucial. Okay, question number 3, last question here. They say, hello, I am eligible to retire with FERS at 62 in May 2023. So just a year and a half-ish away. Congrats. But I am due for a within grade pay increase in July 2023. And is there an advantage to waiting to retire until after that step increase? Thank you for your help. Okay, great question. So there's really 2 things you should know when thinking about this decision. Because honestly, most of you are going to deal with this decision to some degree, right? Whether it is a across-the-board pay increase that happens in January, right? You may think about maybe sticking around for that, maybe a step increase, whatever increase that may be coming your way. It may make you think, hey, should I work a little longer to get some of that before I hang it up, right? That's a great question. And when it comes to your retirement, there are 2 things that come into play, okay? Now, and we already mentioned this so far in this video, but your high 3 is a big one that it might affect. So basically your high 3 affects your pension. And your high 3, again, is your average annual salary in the 3 years you got paid the most. So for most of you, that's going to be the last 3 years. So let's do like an exaggerated example so that this kind of sinks home. Okay, so for example, let's say in the last 3 years of your career when you got paid the most, let's say your pay changed dramatically. Let's say in year 1, let's say you got paid $50,000, okay? In year 2, let's say you got paid $100,000, okay? And then in year 3, let's say you got paid $150,000. Okay, so what's your high 3? Well, they average all those out based on how long you were paid that. Right? So in this simple example, well, your high 3 would be $100,000, right? And they average it out over those 36 months, right? So if you, let's say, had a step increase in July and then retired the next month, well, your high 3 really isn't going to increase very much because you only had a month worth of that salary. And that's going to be averaged with the other 35 months in your high 3 and the 36 consecutive months you got paid the most. Right? So for your pension's not really going to be affected much if you work until that step increase. It's not going to be a big deal. Now, if it's a massive increase, you may want to consider working longer if that's even an option for you. It depends on your situation a lot, but it's something to consider. So really, again, not going to make a big deal. Now, a different thing that may make a little bigger of a difference in the short term is your annual leave. Okay, so many of you know, and I've talked about this many times in other videos, but basically if you have any annual leave on the books when you retire, you get paid a lump sum for that, right? And the lump sum is going to be equal to what you would have been paid if you would have continued working and basically would have used up all that time for your annual leave, right? So, for example, if you could retire, let's say in January, right? Let's say you could retire in January, but you may get a step increase in March. This is just a random example, okay? If you got 2 months worth of annual leave and you'd end up waiting until March to get that step increase, right? Well, that annual leave is going to be paid out at that higher rate of that step increase. Right? If you retire in January, well, that 2 months isn't going to get you to that step increase. If you just retired in January and you got paid out for annual leave then. So it could make a difference depending on what kind of pay increase there's going to be, right? And how much annual leave you have. And the higher those 2 things are, the more of an impact this is going to make. But again, it's not going to be a massive impact, but it may be a small one. So it's something to look into, but again, not the end of the world. So I hope this information has been helpful. Those are the 3 questions for today. Again, if you have any specific questions for you, there's a link below to submit that. And again, in all the descriptions on the YouTube channel, I try to put as much relevant articles and helpful information for you guys to be set up for success in retirement. And I hope this is helpful. Have an incredible rest of your day. We'll see you next time.